And there we are. Hi, everyone. It's Sir Rithkin and Antir, and I'm here with His Royal Majesty Felix of the Middle. Thank you for coming and participating.
I'm greatly honored to be here. I mean, there's so many better people you could talk to. It's just really kind of you to invite me. And I'm sorry I had to bail on you the last time. It's just like you, my job is extremely difficult. You know, I mean, it's when they need me, they need me kind of thing. And so it's like, I got to go. I can't do this interview.
I get that 100%. So it's no problem. No problem at all. I appreciate you rescheduling and talking to me anyway. So you've watched a couple of these. You know that we start most of them with your origin story, how you found the SCA and where and when and all of that. So if you want to start there, that would be awesome.
Okay, and so I'm gonna warn everybody, the ones that don't know me. I hope this is a rated R because I swear a lot. I can't help it. So, and I would also like to preface this with I'm going to be really honest. So if I say things that hurt your feelings, it's not meant to hurt your feelings. Anybody that's watching this, I'm just trying to give you honest feedback so that you can grow and you know, just try to be better. And so my origin story, and you might have to track, you know, keep me on track because I'll see the shiny and run towards it.
Cool.
I was in the 101st Airborne Division down in Clarksville, Tennessee, in the Kingdom of Meridies. And I was wandering by with for those not in the military, the CQ desk. It's kind of the person that runs into interference of people wandering the biz. Like, hey, why are you here? And one of the guys that was on duty, actually, I was on duty. One of the guys walked by, and he saw me reading a Dragonlance book, and he goes, "Hey, you like those books?" I'm like, "Yeah, these are really good." And I'm like, no one else in this barracks is a nerd, so I'm just gonna yeah, you know. And he's like, want to come over to my house this weekend and play some tabletop games? I was like, yeah, I like tabletop games. And so we're over there. And this was Squire Gunther, who later was Sir Gunther Addis from Atlantia. And who later was Sir Mandan. He was still Squire Mandan. He was Squire to Duke Olaf from Atlantia. He was down there, and we were all playing games. And so this is going on. We're having a good time. And they said, so we're going to fight tomorrow? And I look, because I used to box a lot. And I'm like, I can still do some boxing. So I'm like, we can do this. And I'm like, what kind of fighting? And you know, they're like, oh, you know, we do this sword fighting thing. And I'm like, huh? And it's like, well, show me right now. We're done playing games. They're like, show me. And they're like, no, we're going to finish the game. So I shoved all my pieces across the table and was like, try to lose as fast as I possibly can. And then they take me downstairs for like the next 2 hours. They show me the armor. They're putting stuff on me. And I'm like, I'm in. I'm all in. And, you know, Gunther's like gigantic man. You know, and so it's that classic loner armor stuff. You know, I'm wearing my dad's clothes. Nothing fits. You know, he just zinging shots off me. And I'm like, this is great, you know. And he's like, well, he didn't break. So we'll see if he comes back next week. And then here I am. I don't know how many years later it is now. Started when I was 22 and I'm 53 now. So 31 years later.
Wow.
So that's it.
I think there's a height and a weight requirement for being named Gunther.
He's big. He was a big farm guy. He was like, and you know, tells stories all the time about wrestling pigs. And we did some illegal stuff in his backyard in the SCA where he'd say, okay, guys, just get me. And there was 3 of us. And we were on him like spider monkeys on the silverback gorilla. We're jumping on him. I mean, we're hitting him and stuff. And he's just like, ah, and he's just taking us and he's throwing us down. And we're just like, ah! Wow. I mean, some fun stuff.
So you were hooked right away then?
Yeah. So, you know, kind of like, so part of that, well, I mean, I got some other interesting stuff, you know, because looking back and listening to the other interviews, and you said the other night, one of your favorite people is Duke Allen. We broke into the SCA at the same time, pretty much. He was like in Nashville, and so I was at Clarksville, like an hour away. Right, he was actually in that town outside Murfreesboro, outside of Nashville there. And the first tournament that I showed up, I won the novice tourney, and then I ended up finally against him in that tournament. We both beat Knights that day. And they're like, who are you guys? And we're like, we're new, you know?
That's amazing.
And
you both,
so it, like, you know, we were really fast friends, and we were kind of chasing each other for, you know, until I left Meridian and moved to the mid-realm. So,
wow.
but he's amazing, man. He's just a really cool person.
Yeah,
And
you know, I've never met him in person. Just from talking to him in the interview, the guy has so much passion.
yeah, he's just really incredible human being. And that's one of the great things about the SCA. You know, you look back, you know, one of my squires was Duke Gareth LeBruin. One of my squire brothers was, and you know, it's just weird, you know. And like, I authorized against Duke John the Bear Killer,
Wow.
and you know, I flat snapped him right out the gate, and he goes, good. And I flat snapped him again. He goes, good. And then we fight, and he beats the brakes off me, you know, just beats me down. He goes, who taught you how to fight? I'm like, that guy over there. He goes, he just hangs his head, and he's like, I should have known. But what I'm saying is you take those stories for granted, right? You know, I mean, you never know, like, you know, like the journey starts, and you just, you know, it doesn't end. You know, you're going to pick up all these friends from all over the place, and it's just really cool. It's just really cool.
Super cool. And when you just begin like that, you have no idea that these are people, right? Like,
you know, you look back and you're like, all these people are like royal peers, and they're, you know, and they're knights. And like my two sons, my two youngest boys, they fight, and they're going to be great. They're going to be really, really good, not because of me. Everybody I know is like a duke or a count or a knight, and they're all like, okay, well, there's not like 7 knights here fighting. This practice is awful. You know, I don't know what it's going to be like, you know, when they move. You know, they're just gonna be like, wait, you guys don't even have any knights 100 miles from us. How does that work? Where, you know, where I was the opposite, you know, I mean, there were no knights. There were none forever. I mean, go find them. And then that was the same thing when I moved to the mid-realm too. I mean, you just had to go. And anyway, I'm all over the map. So what else you got?
I like the stories. I think they're great, and hooking everything together is amazing.
Yeah.
Who were you squired to? You said that you had your squire brother with Gareth.
My first knight in Meridian was Duke Lawrence of Ishana, and he was a squire to Bear Killer. I believe he was Bear Killer's squire. If not, they were best friends. So I don't really remember that relationship. It was too long ago for me. John could tell you. And so when I was moving to the mid-realm, I always just said, you know, I turned down a bunch of knights in Meridian because they lived too far away from me. I knew that if I had an instructor, I wanted an instructor that was close. And so Lawrence was a really good fit for me. You know, he was super talented, really patient, did a lot of things and a lot of arts and sciences. Even though at the time I couldn't do an art or a science. Oh, thank you, honey. The queen's bringing me a glass of wine that she gave up on. Nice. And so I knew I wanted to be more than what I was. You know what I'm saying? It's just like, I was a guy that had a lot of fire, and I would listen, and I could pick up on things if you showed them to me. And if I couldn't, I would just take the punishment, because that's how they taught back then, is you would just, you know, you would work through the pain, and that's how you got better. That's a wrong way to teach, by the way. You shouldn't be teaching or learning that way. And but we didn't know any better, you know. And so Lawrence, you know, he you know, he was a great teacher, and he helped me a lot as far as understanding what a knight should be. And you know, we all come to this organization. I don't like to call it a game. It's an organization that we, in our mind's eye, we know what a king is, we know what a queen is, and we know what a knight is, and that's it. We don't know what a laurel is. We don't know what a master of defense is. We don't know what a pelican is. We don't know what a baron is. We don't know any of this stuff. But we have it in our mind what these things are supposed to be. And that's very hard for people to let go of. I don't care. I mean, you know, even 30 some odd years later, in my mind, I'm still trying to, you know, to achieve that thing, that pretty much what I started with. But Lawrence really helped me, you know, flesh that out. And then I moved to the Middle Kingdom, and for mundane reasons, chased a girl. And you know, it was really hard coming to the Middle Kingdom. It was really, really hard because the Middle Kingdom is so large. People have no idea. And back then, we still had North Shield and Eldemere both.
Wow.
And I mean, it's just culture shock. It's just because Murdier was small, everyone knew each other, everyone was super friendly. You know, it was a whole Southern hospitality. And I come to the mid round and I go to my first practice, and I'm not, you know, the marshal told me, he goes, "You're not welcome here." And I was just like, all right. Took a 6-month break, came back and was like, I'm gonna try that. You know, I told my wife at the time, we ended up getting divorced, but told my wife at the time, I said, I'm gonna try this one more time. And if it doesn't work out, I'm giving up. And luckily I met a guy that eventually became my squire after I was knighted, Garth of the Craigs. And he said, "Hey, welcome." And he's like, "Here." And like, you know, none of them could fight. They had no training. And I mean, I'm just like, magic sword, can't not hit him, you know, close my eyes, spinning backflip, do all stuff. And they're like, "Oh my gosh, are you a knight?" And I'm like, "No, I'm not even a squire." And they're like, "Well, you teach us to fight?" I'm like, "How long have you been doing this?" 12 years. I'm like, "Man, I've been doing this 4.5 years. What are you asking me anything for?" But that just goes to show you, you know, Lawrence was a really good teacher, and so was Gunther. I mean, and I just had great people around me. You know, you had really young, talented people that I tested myself against every single week, and people like Al-Anon and, you know, Garrett. This was before Garrett was knighted, and I mean, he was just flat the best fighter there for probably in the SCA for probably 3-4 years. I mean, he was 1 or 2. I mean, maybe even longer than that. You know, he was just a really amazing fighter. And you know, I was just really fortunate. But again, you don't know it at the time. You're just kind of just doing this thing. You know, I'm getting my arm around and I'm hitting people, and they're like, "Hey, you're really good." And you're like, "Oh, okay." Oh, those 12 guys are there pounded me into the dirt. Yeah. I'm terrible.
It's amazing how important your first contact is when you go somewhere new.
Right.
Or you're just seeing it for the first time, and people really need to be cognizant. Like, even if you're having a bad day, you don't take it out on the new person.
Right. And that's the thing, you know, it kind of like to tie that back. So that lesson that I learned stuck with me as royalty. And my wife's the best about it. I'm not divorcing this one. She's awesome. She puts up with me. You know, it doesn't matter what we talk about. It doesn't matter how tired you are, or if you had a really bad meeting, you know, a bad peerage meeting, or you had to, you know, you had to have a private meeting with another peer, and you had to hand out discipline, or, you know, you had a local baron or baroness, you know, just being idiotic. And you're like, "Listen, I'm going to take your toys if you don't start treating the group right, because you're failed leadership at this point, and I'm not going to have you abusing these people." You know, those are examples. What I'm saying is those things are hard to carry. Or somebody comes in and as royalty, you know, somebody will confide in you, horrible things. They might have had a death, or they've been diagnosed with cancer, or, you know, they've gone through a horrible breakup, or, you know, and those are terrible things. And I've had worse things said to me, you know, from people. And, so you're not at your best when then that new person comes up and they want to meet you. And, you know, we're always constantly reminding each other because of that, exactly what you say, because that might be the only time that we get to capture that new person. And I want those people here. I don't care. I teach that to my squires too. So one of my squires, Ambrose, he's the best diplomat that there is. He is so good with people. He goes around, grabs them, and he doesn't care who you are. He makes them talk to new people. He's just really good. And yeah, so you're absolutely right. You never know what impact you're going to have on people.
Right. The other thing I wanted to ask you is you said, you know, you have in your mind's eye sort of what you define a knight to be, and it hasn't really changed over the years. What is that for you?
Well, it's changed some, but the fundamental principles are the same. So it's, for me, if you remove the chauvinism from it, and you remove some of the other less savory things, you know, like peasants actually are property, people really wouldn't like it if we adopted medieval attitudes, because I would just say, none of you matter. I don't have to deal with you. You have no business talking to me. Only the nobles do. And there we are. And you can even take that to the levels like, well, you're not a count or earl or a baron or a wealthy a lord, because our titles are all messed up. A lord would actually be higher than a knight, and people just don't understand these things and the context that we've grown up in this. So under that, I mean, the concept of chivalry, specifically from 14th century, and if you can even look back, I know some things about Norse culture, only because, I started to try to do this thing where I was going back to like, okay, well, here's this, the 14th century. I'm really interested in this time frame. So it's really interesting why we have these ideas. So let's move that back. Where did they learn these things? So you start going further back and further back, and even going to Norse and Saxon culture. And, the Lord had an obligation to the people. Okay. It wasn't just a one-way street. And so these are the concepts of fealty. People don't really realize that fealty, it goes both ways. And it's very simple. And this is something that I believe in all the time. And I give this speech is when I'm the sovereign and we're at feast. And I said, and I practice this in my mundane life. If I feed you, that means I care about you, because food is life. So to me, food is love. So that would probably be in the Middle Ages. That'd be about the best thing that you can do to somebody is you could feed them and you can clothe them. So if I'm giving you food and I'm giving you clothing, now I'm going to give you either money or I'm going to give you shelter. I mean, that's a pretty basic necessity in life. And those are some of the struggles that we deal with mundanely here that we're talking about with the strife that we have, with the inequity in the, within the economic system that people are talking about. So it's like, hey, I can't get the food I get, or I can't get the healthcare. I can't, there's no opportunity here. I'm stuck here and I see all this stuff around me. Well, it was a little bit, it's the same thing, but it's scaled down as we go back in time. And so you see these concepts, transpire. And so that was a long way to get to, in my mind, a knight should be a servant to the people. So that's where that was all that backstory, because that is the fun. There's two fundamental concepts. There's actually more than that, but the real basic ones are you should serve the people. And quite frankly, you need to be able to stand up to the bad guy. You need to have wisdom and courage. You need to have the wisdom to know right from wrong and the courage to stand up for what's right. That's pretty much it. That's what I thought was a knight. And those are the tenets that I try to live by. I practice a lot of largesse. I think it's important to give to those in need. To try to be kind. This is something that I developed as I've gotten older. I was kind when I was younger, but it was much more. I grew up rough. I grew up really rough, and I grew up very poor. And I was always generous, even when I didn't have a lot. But it was kind of like on my own terms. And then so when it started, gaining success and moving through life and having goals and trying to achieve them, I always felt like people were kind of trying to take things from me, and they weren't, and it just kind of, those are trust issues, and it just kind of took me time. And I have a bit of an intense personality, and people tend to either really like me or really not like me. And as I've gotten older, it was about 40 that I kind of figured things out. It was just like, what? If you just be nice to people, it goes a long way. Just be nice. Just make people feel welcome. And that's kind of, another part of knighthood. If you really look at those things, you're talking about those things. It kind of boils down to just being nice. Be polite. Be courteous to people. And I still struggle with this, because when people are not courteous, it's just like, okay, so I've been trained to deal with people like you, and I'm the guy that's going to stand up, and I'm going to call you on your bullshit. So it's not that I'm trying to save the world. because I don't know if you can really save anybody. All you can do is you can try to help people save themselves. And that means that if somebody's being victimized or taken advantage of or abused, that we don't just stand idly by, that we step in and we try to aid the system, the situation, if they want our help. You know, I always ask. Well, most of the time, you know, most of the time I ask.
Yeah, I think one of the best things about the SCA and the path to knighthood and trying to live up to your own expectations of knighthood is the concept of fearless generosity and giving without expectation. And once you, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. You just
spurred
another thought that I have and something that I live by. But please continue.
Yeah,
I want to hear what you say.
Yeah, and once you sort of get over the fact that, you know, people are going to judge what you give and what you don't give, if you can get over that and just do it and not have any expectation of getting anything back, and don't invest in what the people might think, it's kind of freeing in a way. And go ahead.
Go ahead.
No. Go ahead.
I thought you were pausing.
I want to hear what you're thinking.
I'm sorry. When I get excited, I want to contribute, and sometimes I talk over people, and it's not. I'm trying not to be rude. It's just you've made me really excited, because this is one of the things that I teach in leadership classes, is that, you know, you have to be. So when you said be fearless, you know, I always talk about it as like, you know, dare to try, because most people won't even dare to try. It's like, yes, you're gonna fail. And I think that's why I've done so well in so many different things in my life, is I failed a lot, but I never let it bother me. And I'm never afraid to fail, because I know I'm going to fail. You know, you know, mundanely, I tell my team, I'm like, oh, I'm going to have like 10 bad ideas today, but who cares? We're just looking for the 2 good ones. That's all we're looking for. And man, we're going to screw this up so bad, and who cares? But what we're going to try to do is never make the same mistake twice. And so that's what I'm talking about, is people are like, oh, I have to be this perfect peer. No, you don't. You just have to know that when you screw up, that you're accountable for your actions, and that you are genuinely contrite, you apologize, and you promise to never do it again, and you do better next time. You don't get to make this, you don't get to just do a bullshit apology that's not an apology. You have to mean it, and you have to do better. And you know, that will fit for anybody in life. And I think, you know, I think more peers should be that way, meaning you're going to screw up, and it's okay. Just when you do, just know that the reason why you're hurting inside is because you care, and you know that you should have done better. So just do better. It's okay.
Yeah, I mean, the thing I think that you come up against in the SCA is when you come up against the people that don't care. And it's like, how do you reach that? I think we're getting all philosophical, which I really like, but like,
I don't really worry about those people. Honestly, I don't like to write people off. I don't. I like to give like a lot of chances. I like to give a lot of chances, and by a lot I mean like 3 or 4. By a lot I mean 2. No, because here's the reality. Okay. Are you the same that you were when you were 20?
No one's the same.
I hope not, right? And so you've grown as a person. So when people grow, they don't become 10s. And when they go, oh my gosh, you know, Brian and Tarragon, he knitted the sun and created the universe. It's like, no, he didn't. No, Brian didn't. Brian didn't do any of that. Okay. Brian's pretty awesome now, but Brian didn't start out awesome. Okay. You know, and I'm not picking on Brian, but he would laugh at this, you know, I just look at my personal growth. So I used to be not a nice human being. And so I was a 1 or even a 0, you know, a 0.5. And then you start growing. So when you go from a 1 to a 3, you don't automatically go to a 5. Sometimes you go back to being a 1. So that process is long, you know, and people are going to ping pong, and sometimes they plateau and they get stuck for a while, and then they just get better, and they just get to a place where they've grown enough that growth becomes easier, and, you know, and they'll hit a plateau again, you know, we all will, but that's the growth, that's how you develop people. And there are people that are just trash human beings. They're garbage people. And so when somebody doesn't care, when they generally don't care, what I do mundanely, I lead people, I build organizations, and so people are my business. I don't miss on people often. I do miss on people occasionally. They'll fool me occasionally, but I can pretty much know a lot about a person in about 1.5 to 2 minutes. And that doesn't make me perfect or anything, because they could be judging me the same way, and they might have a read on me like, hey, there's something wrong with that guy. Something's not right there. And that's usually kind of how it is. You kind of start digging. And well, you probably know this stuff as a lawyer. I just thought of that. You just kind of like know when people are lying to you.
Yeah.
Because you get lied to all day long. So you're just like, yeah, it feels a lot like 11 o'clock break, So what I'm saying is I would rather not use up my energy and my time and my resources on those people. I want to put my energy, time, and resources in the people that care about what we're doing. Because holy moly, it comes back to what you said. You're like, it's that first interaction. We want to get the good ones. We want to keep the good ones, and we want to get that one that's going to get 100. Because you're not going to get 100. I'm not going to get 100. But Joanne over here, she's going to get 100. So let's get Joanne in here and let's get her working. So that's how I look at it. Does that make sense?
No, it totally makes sense. I'm the same
Probably
way.
Weird. People are like, hey, I thought we were going to talk about fighting.
I think one of my biggest weaknesses as a person is that I have no threshold at all for fake. And so it's something.
Say that again. You have no threshold for a fake? Is that what you said?
For fake.
Okay.
Like people that aren't genuine. And being in the legal profession, that's very hard because there's a lot of disingenuity, but disingenuousness. But what you said, like, you just don't invest energy in those people, right? Like, why would I spend any time hating them or anything? Just they over there, gone.
If people haven't figured it out by now, I'm going to tell you the secret to life, people. The most valuable resource that you could ever have is time, because you never get any of that back. There's no do-overs ever. There's no do-overs. So how you decide to spend your time, and this ties to fighting and everything else, your career, everything else, how you decide to spend your time will greatly influence, if not completely secure, the path that you want to have in life. So if you say, I want to do this, it doesn't matter how many deficiencies that you have. If you cut out all these extra things that take your time, you might not achieve your goal, but you can get really close. I don't want to say anyone can do anything. They can't. That's bullshit. That's a lie. That's a lie that we tell our kids. But you can get really damn close. You can get really damn close. And I don't know. That's just how I look at it. It's just like, why would I give you my most valuable resource? Why would I do that? Because you don't care about any of these people that I love. You don't care about anyone here. You don't care about any of the things that we find important. So why am I going to give that to you?
Well, I actually think this whole conversation is a good analogy and to fighting, because you have to be fearless, right? Like, you can't, in fighting, you can't be concerned about looking foolish, especially when you're learning.
And if you're afraid to lose, you'll never win.
Right. So I think there are a lot of parallels. But let's go back to fighting.
I agree with you. I was letting you pontificate. Please, hand that knowledge down for the mountain. I'm here to learn from you just as much as you are from me.
Anyway, let's talk about your path. Like, besides fight practice, what other things did you do to get good?
I went to practice. That's what I did to get good. I swear to God, I honest to God truth. We were training in the wrong fashion. If we would have had an instructor, somebody like how Sean teaches, that makes it safe, we would, the learning curve would have been so much quicker and less painful. We had luckily I heal really quick. Let's just put it that way. But because we fought 4 days a week, we fought 4 times a week. All right. Then we went to an event. So I was fighting 5 times a week. When I was a new knight, we have this thing that's called martial ROM. So I don't know if you guys have ROM, arts and sciences collegium.
Yeah.
Well, we've had an arts, we did that, and like somebody like forever ago, they're like, why don't we do like a martial ROM? It's kind of like what's that, Duke School, or what do they have that down in Trimaris? What do they have that? Yeah, Duke University. So they're like, Felix, come teach a class. I'm like, all right, what do you want to talk about? Like, we want you to talk about how you get knighted. I'm like, all right, that's a broad thing. All right. And so I tried to break it down in very realistic, practical pieces. And one of the things that I've kept, I tried different things over my time as a knight and instructing students and people that, kind of want, even though they weren't my squires, came to me and, their knights sent them to me. It's like, no, we're going to have, Felix clean you up and do all this stuff. And, one of the things, I've talked about is two things. It's like, okay, so why are you here? What do you want to do? I want to get knighted. I want to be the best fighter there is. I'm like, well, that's bad. I don't want you to be the best fighter there is, because that'll last like a second and a half. And then what? All right. I want you to just start achieving your potential. And they're like, okay. And they're like, you can tell that they don't get it. And they're like, well, right now you're not doing anything because you fight like 1 time a week, and practice is 3 hours long. And, halfway through, you're still not into armor. And 45 minutes later, you're still talking about things. And when you finally come out here and start training with people that are better than you, and you ask them, you ask the correct question, like, what's going on here? Or what are you seeing? And they tell you, and then you go, yeah, but, because like, I'm like, get the fuck off the field. We're done. We're done tonight. I'm done with you. I'm fighting these guys over here that want to learn something, again, because I'm giving you my time. I don't have to, but I want to. And if you're going to argue with me, okay. All right. Now, if Sean comes in here, or Uther, or other guys, they come in here, and they don't even have to be, these legends, I was, this is a side thing, so I fought in the Western Crown Lift a couple years ago, and Sean was king. I think he was king. He might have been prince, but I think he was king. And, Sean and I know each other. And so afterwards, we're all standing around drinking. I'm like, so Sean, what'd you see? And he wouldn't tell me. He's like, oh, I'm like, stop being Midwestern and worried about offending me. Just tell me what I did wrong. He goes, well, you lost. I'm like, that doesn't help me, Sean. And I got really mad at him and I left, like mad, but not,
Right.
We were joking 3 minutes later. But my point is that you need to listen as a student. And if you're a student of fighting, it doesn't matter how much success that you have. You need to listen when you are getting information. And most people don't want to listen, so they won't put the work in. They just have this narrative in their brain that they're like, a world killer. And it's just like, stop already. Just stop. Just come and listen, learn, do the stuff and good things will happen. And people just kind of get caught up in all their own bullshit. And, and so those are some of the things that, I've always just tried to convey to people. It's just like, come, be humble enough to listen and learn. Doesn't matter what your title is. Doesn't matter how much success or failure you've had. Doesn't matter. Have a short memory. Just listen to what's going on. Don't worry about how you lost. Yeah. Meaning you can process this later. Let's just get the information while we can, and you can take this away and you can think about this stuff in the quiet of the night, or you can, think about it for a couple of days. You can ping that person back or give them a call and say, hey, I thought about what you said. Is this what you're trying to get me to do? Yeah. So I'm sorry. I took you off on a tangent.
No, that's fine. I have to elaborate on something you said though. People that are watching that want instruction, if you say, yeah, but like, that's the thing that's going to turn the person off from teaching you the fastest. So take it out of your vocabulary.
Well, and the other version of yeah, but is well, I know that I would have killed you, but you did this.
Right.
I'm like, yeah, but you just ate rattan for like 7 shots in a row, so you never got to your 18 shot combo that was going to cut me in half. You're never going to get there, man. I'm just not going to let you. I'm not going to let you do that to me. Anyway.
Yeah, but that is an important lesson, right? Is that you need to listen, and like Sean always calls it, what, empty cup. You have to come with your empty cup, and even if you think you have something to say back, like just hold it.
Yeah, write it down.
Right.
Put that crap in your journal instead of somebody's name that you're like, I fought Squire somebody, or I fought Sir so and so. That's garbage. It's just like, what are you really putting in your journal? If you're going to put notes in there, let's put something in there that's actually going to benefit you instead of just a list of guys that you fought. That's, anyway. I'm sorry. I'm trying to tone it down a little bit.
No, it's fine.
These things get me fired up because you've seen all these things over the years in the SCA, all this stuff that's being taught. It's like, okay, great. I understand that you got knighted, and I understand, yes, you can flat fight. But you're the worst teacher I've ever seen in my life. So just shut up and let somebody else teach that knows what they're doing. And I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about, there's a lot of really good ones out there. We've talked about a bunch of them already tonight. Bronis is amazing. Sean's amazing. Uther's amazing. They're just a ton of them out there. And I'll forget a bunch of them, but there's a lot of really, really good teachers out there. But there's also probably 5 times as many people out there that shouldn't be instructing at all. They need to stop, listen, and learn. And meaning they need to learn how to teach. They already know how to fight. They just need to know how to communicate it back to the community so that you can make the community better.
So I'm running the fighting classes at Sport of Kings next year, and I'm going to make someone, well, not make someone, I'm going to persuade someone to teach.
So you listen, I want to tell you something. I'm going to make a promise to you, as long as we've got some things going on here in our personal life, as long as they work out in the next few months. When is Sport of Kings next year?
It's in August. I don't know the exact date yet, but I think it's after Penzix.
So Penzix is a problem for us in this kingdom. So I'll check the calendar and see where things are. I was really disappointed you missed your goal by this much. All right. So I'm going to make a promise to you, and I don't do this a lot. I'll fly to Sport of Kings so you get to fight another Duke.
Or I can come out to you. I mean,
wait, you're always welcome here. We'll show you a grand old time in the mid-realm. I'll line them all up for you. In fact, you should come to this thing next year that we'll have. We have this thing called Chivalry Retreat.
I was going to ask you about that because I heard about that.
Are allowed. If you ask, we'll usually go, yeah. There's a couple guys that are just complete jerks in the SCA, and we'll tell them no, because we're like that. And but yeah, you could come on out, and it's amazing. It's a great time. You'll have anywhere from 60 to 110 chivalry there that we'll fight, and we fight all day, and then we know the people that are locally, they spoil us and they feed us, and then it's lots of adult beverages and no shit there was stories.
Cool. I'm totally gonna take you up on that.
Good time. Ask Duke Hanzo about it. He's been a couple times.
All right, I definitely will. Will. You have something else out there that I tried to pattern once, which is the Tournament of Chivalry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you explain that? What?
It didn't work for you guys?
Well, I ran it at an event and it sort of worked, but
yeah. So how that originally started was King Bronis and Queen Rebecca. See, we used to have invite only crown list because we had a douchebag of a king. He took out jewels of the crown and tried to sell them. He viewed like all this stuff, all the regalia as his own personal property. He's just a horrible human being. And since we've had worse human beings, not necessarily kings, but we've had worse human beings. And so to this day, our crowns are missing a jewel. So it's always a reminder of the crown. Don't be, be a good sovereign. Be worthy of the title that you wear. But so with crown lists being invitation only, for an unbelt, like if you got invited, you had to go. You had to. And I was in that position, and I went and I fought my first one, and I'm like, I'm not fighting in these again. And they're like, what, was it awful? I'm like, no, it was amazing. But I have no business being king. I'm not doing this. And so they invited me again because they did really well. And I was like, I turned it down. I'm like, they're like, everybody's like gas. They're like, oh my gosh, and I was like, I don't know if I was the first one to turn it down, but I was one of the really rare ones to turn it down. And Bronis and Rebecca, they devised a tournament of chivalry. And so it was a super high profile tournament with none of the consequences. So it used to be a tournament, like an actual tournament. And then, I don't know, somebody morphed it. I don't know where, there are other people that can tell you. Bronis would probably be like, so-and-so did it. They wrecked it, I love Bronis.
I'll ask him.
Have you interviewed Bronis?
November.
That guy, listen to everything he says, sop it up with biscuits, and then do that again. So we started having this thing. So, it was the knights basically hold the field, and it's like all the unbelt. And I'll never forget, because I fought in one. It was like right before I got knighted, and everybody's like, oh my God. And they're like, people are terrified to fight the knights. And I'm like, get out of, I would have my fight and I would get right back. And everybody's like, I'm like, I'm fighting, and I would just jump to the front of the line. And people, they didn't get the concept. And, I've been a knight so long now, you get, you see the things that they don't see, it's kind of funny. It's just like, it's so easy, the curtain to seeing the great and terrible Oz is like, it's just filmy. You can see right through the curtain if you know what you're looking for. And, it's this great thing, we usually have most of the times about 100 unbelts, and about, I don't know, it all varies, probably consistently about 40 members of the chivalry that show up. Sometimes it's a lot more, but rarely is it fewer than that. And it's a long day for the chivalry. You'll get more fighting than you want. You really will, because and people are all over the scale. Some people are really, they're fighting at shiv level and they don't know it, and other people think that they are, and they're just awful, and you're like, oh, what are we doing? And it's just the old yeah, but they don't want to listen. You're trying to really help them, and they're like, look how awesome I am, look at my Superman pose. I'm like, yeah, next, because we usually have two different lists. So we have a list where two out of three, or you'll fight 3 fights, and they might ask for some feedback, and and we have other ones that are the crown list, and it just depends on how you're feeling. Well, this way for me, it's just like basically how many injuries am I fighting, whether or not I'm fighting the crown list, or if I want to spend the day trying to teach specifically. And I usually go over and grab people all along, like, come on, we're gonna go spend the next half hour together, and I'm gonna actually help you solve this problem that you're having. But in the crown lift, it's just murderer's row. It's just like, they're like, nope, next, you're out of the tournament. Bye, have a nice day. And so you're trying to teach people in that regard, because I've had people say, oh, that was just brutal. I'm like, yes, you're actually learning how to fight in a tournament. You're trying to fight at the highest stake. And I said, and this still isn't it. So as much as we want to pretend that we're going to, put our mental game on and go out there and fight at the crown level, what you just experienced is still not at the crown level. And that just melts people's brains, because it's just one of those things. You can't do it till you're doing it. You probably know a little bit about that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because
no,
you put all these pressures on yourself, or there's an expectation, if you will, or I have a very short memory as far as, like, I never think I'm going to lose. I don't care if I lost the last 50 fights in a row. I never think I'm going to lose. And so when it comes to crown, and so what I'm saying is I still play those fights back in my head later on, but I don't let it get in my head during the time. So If I were to lose to a lesser opponent in a tournament, I wouldn't go, oh my gosh, you know, I shouldn't have lost to that guy or that woman. I shouldn't have lost to that person.
Right.
I would just go, okay, next person up. I'm fighting the next person.
Have you always been that way, or did you teach yourself
Yes.
how to do that? You've always been that
No,
way.
actually, I taught myself how to do this, but that was mostly because I had to fight Gunther, and he would never take mercy on me. I mean, like, I'm purple, all right, I'm purple. That I always laugh, when people go like, I don't care if you're white, brown, or purple. It's just like, no, I've actually been purple. I've been a purple human being, thanks to Gunther, and he just didn't care. He'd hit the same spot over and over and over, and the bruise would just get bigger and bigger and bigger. And, you just had to learn that if you wanted to have success, you couldn't keep thinking about, I haven't blocked that leg shot the last 17 times. I just need to kind of keep moving forward in my training and try to refine it a little bit better. And it's like I said, and if I fight my fight, good things will happen. So I think inadvertently, I think that was just beaten into me, literally. I mean, because I wasn't going to accept not improving. So I had to figure out how to get better. And it wasn't that Gunther wasn't teaching me. But if I screwed up, I mean, he was hitting me. He was the old Kung Fu master that you see in the movies. It's like, you've carried the water up the mountain like 8 million times, and they hit you every time you dump the water in. That was Gunther. And, I don't, for better or for worse, I don't know. I don't train my people that way, but there's a very specific drill that I do. I call it the light switch, the on and off drill. And so, how a lot of practices will devolve sometimes into like a bear pit, and so you're holding the field. So I would tell people, people, men and women both, fighters just in general, you're improving. All right. So you're kind of getting to the point where you kind of need to start figuring out, if you're going to eat meat tonight or you need vegetables tonight. You can't just, it's not Twinkies anymore. It's like, right. You're getting good. You got some skill. We need to do something with this thing here. All right. And so I say, first time through the line, just laissez-faire. Just do your thing. Doesn't matter. You get smoked. Don't worry about it. Next time through, we call everybody dies. So you are literally trying to just tear people's heads off their shoulders. And you don't care how bad they feel emotionally. You don't care about anything. You don't get the shrug shots, but you don't care how bad you just like, new guy, bam, I don't care. We'll deal with you. We'll deal with you later because I'm training too. My whole practice can't be about new guy here that was like 3 minutes. Okay. You stepped into the line. We told you what was going to happen. You got ate. Big fish ate a little fish. Move on, because that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to be big fish. And so what you do is you go through, I don't care if you get everybody. If you get 3/4 of the people, it doesn't matter. You go back through, you turn that switch off again, and you go, I don't care. I'm just going to kind of whatever happened. And you might have some really good fights. And so there's things that you can learn with that. And, there's so much I don't want to talk about fighting. There's left brain fighting, there's right brain fighting, and then there's, fighting that comes from what I call, what people call the soul. It's coming from the inside of you. And it talks to, Musashi talks about striking your opponent with your chi, with the force of you. And so that's not left brain, right brain. That's exuding, I'm a killer. And you can see it on the field because you can show up at a tournament and you go, that individual is a problem. There could be 50 people there and you can immediately identify 3 of them as a problem. The rest of them are like, okay, they're kind of here. They're going to get eaten up today. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to create that process. So we're trying to tamp down those anxieties. We're trying to be that frog in the soup, that water that's heating up. We're trying to just go, yeah, it's not hot yet. It's not hot yet. I'm not worried. I'm not worried. And so what you're doing is you're just, you're anesthetizing people to this process. You're getting them comfortable so they can actually relax and they can fight. Because that's where you're trying to get people to. So you get them so goddamn keyed up and so used to being so tight that they just go, this is not so bad. Well, this is Thursday night with Felix. I mean, he's not standing on my throat, so does that make sense?
Oh, definitely.
So that's a drill that I put through people. And then we used to have this tournament. We called it the Coca-Cola tournament.
Okay.
All right. I don't even drink Coca-Cola. I don't drink soda. I drink maybe like 3-4 sodas a year. And it's usually at Penzic when I'm calorie deficient. And we would have a tournament once a month. And it was a big deal. Because it doesn't matter what it is. It could be anything. But it's that status symbol. Why do people think that this is important? And so I used to carry around a cooler of just old Cokes that are like a year old, 2 years old. I mean, like a bunch of them. I'm like, I won it every freaking week for the last 3 years. You guys are not getting it. I need to add to my collection. I'm like, you're not getting that Coca-Cola tonight. And when guys were like, I got it. I'm like, you better not drink it. because you're not getting it next week, fella. You beat me, but you're not getting it next week. And they were like, wait, what? I'm like, yep, not getting it next week. And so do you see the mental game that goes on there, that mental process? And so we're creating will, we're creating a test of fortitude. You're getting people comfortable with winning, because anybody can lose. Anybody can lose. I'm going to talk out of both sides of my mouth here, because it's really hard for some guys to lose. I haven't seen, I'm going to say guys, because I've never seen any women do this, but the ones that just take really hard, it's like, you got beat today, bro. Just sit down. It's like, no, it comes back to that whole narrative in their minds. Like, I must win. No, you need to be gracious. You need to understand that by accepting that loss, your legend becomes more. Right. And, and that's kind of a failure of what we do in the SCA. What we do wrong in the SCA, I don't know if you know this. I did Battle of the Nation stuff. Yes. I was one of the guys that went over with Uther and all the rest of those knuckleheads. And it was really great, because we introduced concept to the chivalry to them that they didn't. It was very much a sport-oriented thing, and like, we changed them and they changed us. And so I brought that back, and well, it's an incredible test, and there's some things to learn there, and I went for very specific reasons. What they do right is, and what we do wrong in the SCA is in the SCA, we celebrate the victor, the person that wins. They celebrate the person that may be finished 5th or 6th in the tournament, because they did this great heroic deed. They did an actual deed of chivalry. They did this deed of arms, and that is very medieval. And the remote, in the 14th century, in a tournament, multiple prizes were given out. And just because you won the tournament didn't mean you had the most prestige. Well, in the SCA, very American thing of winning and losing, winners and losers. That's it. They don't realize, we don't realize that. And I'm not a big believer that everybody should get a trophy, but there are people that are worthy of praise that will never, ever win a tournament. And they absolutely deserve our respect. And that is something that I kind of knew, but that's something that I absolutely learned from going overseas and fighting for all those years.
How do you think we can implement that better in the SCA?
I really think that, unfortunately, it comes down from depend. I'm biased because the culture that we have here that I live in the mid-realm, that really needs to come from the crown. The crown needs to hold people up and go, here we go. And this is something that we've done, and I've encouraged, I encouraged my good friend, Duke Kalick. I think you've interviewed, and I thought you had. In his last reign, I said, Kalick, don't give an award for everything. He goes, what do you mean? I need to recognize people. I was like, it doesn't have to be an award. He goes, oh. And so Kalick, had people stand up and give word fame, tell stories about other people. And it could be a person that's cooked, in the kitchen, or did this great arts and science project. It wasn't always just, on the field. And in fact, most of the time it wasn't for people that were on the field. But, you see a really cool act, on the field. The crowd should be stepping up and just stopping things. Just stop and just bring them forth. give them coins, give them, a piece of pottery, give them love, have a special scroll made that just said, we've done this, just told the heralds, write this down. And you just start talking. It's like, get most of that on a scroll and hand it to them. They're like, what's a word? Is it like, it's nothing. Just write the thing up and we're signing it. Because how is that any different than an AOA or anything else? It's just, that's what they did in the past. They just made these things and they kind of codified it. But really all it is just a thank you for being part of what we do and making our experience better, right?
Right.
Am I wrong?
No, that's
okay. Because if I am, I want you to tell me.
No. We in Ontier try to do like a Ladies of the Rose tournament, which is a very similar thing where they give prizes for valor in the tourney, and the person that gets the big prize at the end isn't necessarily the person that won the tourney, it's the person that impressed the ladies the most. Which I think is a cool concept.
We have a rose tourney too, but it's a team thing, and so you'll have like multiple aspects of it. But there is just a straight up winner and not.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah,
but I love that concept.
Yeah.
And I'm always stealing ideas from other kingdoms, like what works and what doesn't. Like recently we stole what is it? The Queen's tournament. I believe it was the Arts and Science tournament. We had it in as reign, or Tournament of Arts, I think is what it is. And it was great. Just a day of arts and sciences, and they gave out prize for a variety of different things. But it wasn't necessarily even the people that did the best art. It was just like, what you're doing is amazing. Just keep doing that, because holy Christ, in 3 years, you're going to be like unreal. So
a couple of people have questions for you, but before I get to those, I got to ask you a couple things about your background and what you're wearing. So that bench is incredible. What is that?
The what?
The bench.
Oh, these are from our second reign. I conspired. I pull a lot of tricks, just in general. We ended up making him and his wife Johanna. I can't even remember Johann's SCA name. We made that. Everybody in the Pelican meeting wanted to make her a Pelican. I'm like, okay, cool. What about this guy Johann she's married to? And everybody's like, huh? And so it was a flash mob instantly. So we walked down. We left the Pelican meeting. We walked down. And we made them both Pelicans, and they were having this gigantic party for like 700 people. So again, they were serving people, but I conspired with them before then to make these Turkish thrones, these Ottoman thrones for my wife, and they wouldn't take a nickel.
It's gorgeous.
They're beautiful.
Yeah.
And everybody, if we ever come to our camp at Penzing, and you're invited if you ever come, we always put on the gigantic thing. And there's in our tent and in the camp, and these benches are always there for people to sit on, and we have different chairs, but we have them on display because we had them in storage at one point, and we're like, these are going to get wrecked in storage. We have to actually set them up in our living room. We have, and I'm looking around, it's like we do have a fair amount of SCA in our house, or medieval things, but it looks more eclectic how we've done things. We're not like some of the SCA families. You're like, oh my God, it's all SCA all the time. I mean, you can definitely tell it's part of our life, but people would come in like, are you guys you have a master's degree in history? I'm like, no, I don't even got a master's degree.
They're gorgeous. I mean, it's furniture.
But yeah,
it's beautiful furniture.
Yeah, so in our second reign, we didn't use the Kingdom Thrones. We used these, and people were like, "What?" Yeah.
And then,
so what else you got? I would rather talk about stuff other people have done than me.
Well, is that the color state for the mid-realm?
No, this is my personal color state.
Okay. It's very cool too.
This is modeled on the Black Princes. So this is 14th century. So you have the 3 ostrich feathers, and then you have the dragon, but the dragon just happens to work for the mid-realm.
Cool. And then the last question is your thing painted, like the top?
Yes. This pour point's actually been stamped, but it's been stamped in the actual correct 14th century pattern. that was actually used from the woven that was actually an Italian example. And I have actually, no, I don't have this one in silk. I have another one in silk with other bestiary. Those other ones are fish. These are all birds. I can't see. These are all birds. Yeah, these
Yeah,
are
they
all
look
birds.
like birds.
Birds.
It's very pretty.
Yeah. Oh, and I got some greyhounds here too. I got some greyhounds. This is from my friend Natalia. She's from Moscow, and she's obviously been doing great work for a long time, but I made a world famous here in the USA. I bought a couple garments. I'm like, buy this. And everybody's like, these are awesome. I'm like, yeah, I used to make these. I can't make them for what she does, so I don't make them anymore. Because I made pretty good ones. She makes exceptional ones. She's really, really sweet human being.
Cool. Okay, so I'm going to go. Bex asks, what's the hardest, greatest part of having your kids coming of their own in armor?
Okay, so here's the thing. My oldest boy doesn't fight. He was a recon Marine and suffered some injuries. And while he's still a very young man and he used to fight, he can't fight anymore because he had some bad stuff happen to his back. And he's just kind of lucky to kind of be able to move around and function in a normal fashion. The hardest part is that they're my kids, okay? So I never ever told any of my sons, they had to play football or baseball or be in band I'm not that kind of parent. And people go, your kids are so talented. I'm like, no, they're not. They're just average, and like, they're like normal kids. My kids are not special. So I'm that kind of parent. I'm like, nah, not so good. And, and they're amazing human beings though. They're polite, they're kind, they're generous. And those are the things that I really care about. And, like when they screw up, they're accountable, I mean, those, those are the things those are what, they're good humans. And that is what I want. I don't care about any of that other stuff. And they're both good, man. They're both good. They're just flat good. And the biggest, hardest part what's going to happen for them is eventually, time will go on if they stick with this. And, it's not fair to them, I'm not telling any tales out of school here. They show up and they look better than 95% of the people on the field. Because they're both like, well, is this right, Dad? I'm like, nope, that's wrong. Do this, do this, do this, do this. And, some of it I'm doing, some of it they're doing. I'm teaching them, but I know some things and, you're just trying to pass it on, just like with your squires. You're just like, is this right? Nope. And so they have all these really talented people around them. And, when they're going to be evaluated, they're just going to like, well, yeah, it's because they're your kids. I'm like, would you say that if, they walked off the street? So that's what they'll struggle with. And then I think, they're both really strong human beings. But what I worry about, so I'm not, this is my, I don't know, I don't want them to carry this baggage. So this is the dad, in me going, I don't want them ever thinking, well, the only reason why I ever had success is because of you, Dad. You know what I'm saying? But I don't put a lot on them other than, I don't cut them any slack. If they do something wrong, it's like, that's not right. And like a lot of times they won't listen to me. And so I have other squires around there and they're just like, they'll go to them. They're like, well, Dad is saying this. And they're just like, you better listen. They're like, well, he's just saying that because he's my dad. It's like, well, have you heard him talking to us for the last 20 minutes? He hasn't really been, giving us all that much, love over here. And, the training group that I run is very, very honest. Right? It's very honest. We don't bind any bullshit. It's just like, if you lost, you don't get to make excuses. You get to analyze the problem. You get to ask for help, and then you get to train through it. And if you're not willing to do that, you can't come to our practice a second time. And that's just how it is. It's just the way it is. And I've had people ask to be my squire, and I said no. And they're like, why? I'm like, because I'm a bad match for you. It's not that I don't see a knight in you. It's just I won't be able to help you. And I've had people turn me down that I could help greatly, and they've languished. And that doesn't mean that I've got the silver bullet. What I'm saying is because what I do mundanely is I see people and potential, and I try to help people maximize that. But not everybody wants help, and that's okay. I mean, it really bothered me like when I was 32 or 35. But at some point, I was just like, no, it's okay. I'm glad that somebody told me no, because I dodged a bullet. Because I'm more invested in them than they are in themselves. Do you have squires or potential, students or squires that, like you're like working through that process? Or because I've even had a squire. I've actually had two of them that I was more invested in them than they were in themselves. And that was heartbreaking for me. That was really hard. That was hard. That was hard.
Yeah. One of my squires is like Jill of all trades, and she just doesn't make fighting her priority, and she knows that. We talked about it, and that is hard a little bit for me because I see all the potential, and I just want her to maximize her potential, but she has to decide that that's the priority.
And so like after reading all the the variety of 14th century literature and both fiction and nonfiction, it's okay for people to be a squire for their lifetime. There's nothing wrong with that. Doesn't make a person a failure. I mean, that's a noble pursuit, because think about that. If you're going to continue to do something without reward or recognition, that's the nobler path in my mind. That's the harder path. Okay. I mean, I have a lot of respect for people. I have a 74-year-old squire, Istvan. He started fighting when he was about 54. And so I'm a 30-year-old knight. I got a 54-year-old squire. And I'm like, all right, you know what? This is real medieval. I don't care. I can do it. I can lead. I can do this thing. And, he's a pretty amazing person, but he doesn't fight anymore. But I'm really big into arts and sciences and service. And so I make all of my people do these things, whether they want to or not. And it's okay if people are not knighted or made a laurel or pelican, because you're still enriching the community, right?
Really, it's about the path, right?
Yeah.
I mean, even when you get the peerage, the path is still there.
I'm laughing because I thought this interview was going to go a very specific way, and this is not. We're in a whole different place than I thought this is going to be, and I think it's great.
I do too.
I love it, and I'm sorry that if I've made this thing a train wreck in a dumpster fire, but I'm enjoying the hell out of it. So I hope I'm not boring the pants off of
No, I don't think so. People are engaged, but I want to go back to your kids for just a second because I don't think there's any way that your kids would ever think they succeeded just because of you, because the way that you've raised them, that you've said that, like, if
I'm telling you, that's the fear that I have in my heart.
Standard.
That's something that I carry.
Oh, okay. Because I'm like,
I'm saying that's like if my boys were ever offered, the accolade of knighthood or another peerage, it would break me if they said, Dad, the only reason why they're making me a knight or a pelican or a laurel is because of you. That would hurt me so bad. I mean, I couldn't deal with it. That would just destroy me. But the other side of that is I'm like, you sons of bitches, they're kicking the shit out of all you guys. They're doing all this stuff, and you guys won't recognize them because they're my kid. Because you're saying, well, you just did that. I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm just, I'm projecting as a father. I'm being irrational, and I know it. These are the things that I've thought about.
legitimate overthink, yeah, of, you know, wanting to make sure your kids are measured on their own merits.
Yes, but one of the really funny things is my middle son Xavier. He's 20, and he went to an event like I think it was coronation of Sato and Inez, our previous we were the heirs too. I couldn't go because of work. This work was killing me, and he said, and like it was a long way away, and he's like, Dad, I'm going. I'm like, what? That's like an 8-hour drive, and he goes, yeah, I've got to go. They're making a king today, and I was just like, I'm just gonna shut up and get out of the way, you know. And so he goes to this event all by himself. Okay, he's a 19-year-old young man, you know. He's still a kid, you know. And you know, the SCA is much older now than it used to be. And he goes to this thing. I'm thinking the whole time, and my wife, she goes, "There's just gonna be a bunch of 45-year-old people and older there." And I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "He's gonna be bored to tears." And so he tells me the story when he gets back, you know, Duchess so-and-so, Duke so-and-so, everybody's coming and checking on. Where's your mom and dad? Oh, they're at the house, blah, 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 blah. And so he goes through the coronation, and it just basically, you know, if you were thinking about it from the aspect of from Hollywood, he got invited to the after party with all the VIPs, and like, you know, just like, oh, come on in, Xavier, you know, and he's just like, oh, it's normal, whatever, you know, like, and so he goes back, and like, there are a couple of younger people, they're like, how do you know all these people? Like, I don't know. They're just all around all the time. I know them all.
It's funny because, you know, us older people always think, oh, the young people aren't going to want to hang out with us. We're, you know, in our 40s, whatever.
We're boring.
Yeah, I don't think they care.
No.
Okay, so somebody else has a question for you too. They ask, what was the hardest lesson you had to learn as a leader? It's very broad.
The hardest lesson I had to learn is really, I think well, I've always put my people first, but I was as a younger leader, I was afraid to fail. Okay, and so we kind of covered that. I'm not afraid to fail right now. Like, I'm super hard on myself when I fail now, mostly because I feel such an obligation to the people that you know, meaning specifically the people that I'm leading. I don't really get too overworked up about the people above me. I'm like, you'll figure it out if you can't. I really don't worry about it because you know that I'm doing good works down here. I don't ever want to disappoint people that I'm leading. Okay, I don't care if they're angry with me. I don't care. But if they feel like I like genuinely, if I have failed them, not necessarily if they feel like, because I'm willing to have that conversation. Because if people are upset, I'm like, I'll pull them in and like, hey, so let's have a conversation. You're obviously upset. You're not happy about things. You just get them talking and you listen. Just listen. You don't talk a lot. Like tonight, I'm talking a lot. But you know, in that role, you just listen a bunch. And if you mess up, if you fuck up, you got to own it. All right. And you need to make it right. And so I have this rule. Okay. Like if I were to do something, even if I counseled them privately, I don't call people out publicly unless they challenge me publicly. Like if they're wrong, if they call me out in front of the whole group, I'm not going to lose the group over one person. You know, it's just like, nope, you're going to the gallows. You know, you're done. But if I mess up, I will always apologize publicly. I apologize privately, and then I say, come on. And they never know what's happening the first time, you know, and hopefully there's never a second time. I haven't had a second time yet, but you know, we can, you know, we're flawed individuals and we can make that mistake. Is, you know, you apologize publicly and you say, I was wrong. And you need to make it perfectly clear. Can't be this quasi thing. Those are really hard things to learn because you feel like you're done as a leader at that point. You know, you can't recover from that. And it's actually the opposite of that. But hindsight, that's hindsight. You know, it takes time. And so that's what people want to, you know, at least my experience, that people want from a leader is that you're going to be honest, you're going to be consistent, and you're going to communicate clearly, and that when you screw up, you are going to absolutely own it, and you're not going to sacrifice them to further yourself. You have to be able to sacrifice yourself for them. And that's hard. That's hard to learn. And I don't think a lot of people can do that, because I see a lot of failed leadership out there. And again, I'm not trying to say, I'm this perfect or amazing leader. I'm just saying I've had good instructors around me, and I've learned really hard lessons in life. So those are probably the hardest things that I've learned in leadership. The other thing is as a leader, as I get older, it's funny. I care very little how much I know. Meaning, I have all you here. I'm paying you. I don't need to be the expert. That's why I got you here. I need to listen to the experts and go, well, that's the best decision. I just need to listen to everybody and go, okay, we're going to do that. And guess what, guys and gals? If we go over here because we thought that was the best idea, I'll tell you, I chose that. This isn't working out. We're going to try Stephanie's idea over here. We're not going to use Bob's idea anymore. We're going to kind of just change course. And you have to have the courage to be able to fail. You got to dare to step out the door. Bilbo Baggins, they said, it's a dangerous business stepping out your front door, Bilbo. And what he's meaning is dare to try, because guess what? It's okay here. The fire's nice. We got bread, we got butter, we got honey. Well, you know what? Okay. All right. Well, if you're going to choose adventure, if you're going to try to be more than what you are, you have to try. And that means that a lot of failure comes with that. And you have to be willing to accept that.
I think that's so important, both in and outside of the SCA, is taking ownership of your action, good or bad.
Well, listen, I talked to you about, it's like I said, I don't like to call this a game. I like to call it an organization. And yeah, we're playing at things. And the SCA is not my whole world. Okay. I do a lot of stuff, but I've learned so much in the SCA, and I've become such a better human because I've been in the SCA. And those ideals and those things and the people that I've been around, all of those people made me a better human being. And they afforded me the opportunity to grow and have success in a variety of different fashions. And, we talked about that. We talked about that growth pattern. Well, I can't take credit for most of that. It's the people around me, that specifically has spent so much of my time in life in the SCA. The greatest leadership experiences that I've had have directly come from two organizations, the United States Army and the SCA. I've been to a ton of classes. I've read gads of books. I've been to millions of seminars, and most of it bullshit. Most of it that I learned is from a real practical application from those two organizations, because they kind of, the Army has consequences, but the SCA really doesn't. You'll get people killed in the Army. You won't in the SCA. And I'm so much better, and so is my whole family for being in the SCA.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, one more question from the audience, and then we probably should wrap up, because
I'm sorry, I've been talking so much. I'm so sorry.
No. I could probably talk to you for another hour. We just totally threw the script out, so it's been awesome. But Beck wants to know.
I'm so sorry.
No, don't apologize at all. This has been awesome. It's been great. It's really been stimulating and fascinating conversation, and you've kept the audience engaged.
Hopefully I've been different.
It's been different. I've really enjoyed it. Okay.
Different's not always good.
Exciting question. Not being tall or big, How do you generate power, and do you do it differently than you do in the Battle of Nations?
Okay, so most of my fighting career, I weighed. I'm 6 feet tall. For those of you that don't know, so I'm kind of like in the sweet spot for a fighter. You know, I don't have to deal with those super tall issues. I don't have to deal with short issues. Um, I understood really good body mechanics and power mechanics from boxing. But most of my fighting weight, like when I won my first crown, I was like 150 pounds. I'm currently 180 pounds. I weighed as much as 205 pounds doing Battle of the Nations, because after my first year of me running into people, it feels like my feelings were getting knocked out. So I put on 20 pounds of muscle that first year, and then I put on another 20 pounds the second year. And then when I got to 205, it was too big for my frame. Like I couldn't fight anymore. So I cut back to like 195 to 200. And so I held that weight for a really long time. What I learned about fighting is this. And so when I always had really good mechanics, because I being a really smaller fighter, I was really fast. I had really quick hand speed from boxing and doing other things. So I had really good footwork, really good handwork. And so I understood, that I had to get my whole, so it's kind of like Bruce Lee. It's like, so really I'm swinging from my feet. So I always talk about like generating power with my feet. And they're like, what? Because everyone else talk about, power coming from your hips and your abdomen, your shoulder, and all those things are fine. But when the smaller you are, the slighter you get, you have to find new things to do it. So the thing that people struggled with my fighting, and I don't do it as much today because I'm just older and I don't want to have to work as hard and everything. But like I had these really extreme angles. So if you see pictures of me fire videos from me fighting, like 17 years ago, or when I won my first one, they're like, holy crap, who steps way the hell out there? And so what it is, it's a matter of physics. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get that tip of that sword to go through a greater arc, but I'm fooling you with body language and where my hand positioning is and the way that I throw the sword. And a lot of people don't know this. A lot of people want to grip the sword really hard. If you want to hit really hard, you don't grip the sword hard. It's got to be loose in your hand. And that's why I use a trigger, because so I can go loose. I mean, literally it's going like this. And then like the 100th of a second before I hit you, I've grabbed that sword, and like all that energy just goes bam. And it's like a lightning bolt, and it goes through you. You feel like, you're going to poop your pants. And so that's it really. I mean, so what I realized though is like when I added weight training in, specifically squats and deadlifts and kettlebells, those three exercises specifically, also box jumps, anything that can create explosive power, actually creates kinetic energy with your sword shots. And what it allows you to do is it allows you to conserve energy as a fighter. So you can know like 1,000 different things, but if you don't have any gas in the tank, you can't do anything. So you need to be physically fit. So those things will make you faster. So specifically deadlifts, kettlebells, and squats will actually make you faster, because you're like, oh, that's not going to work. No, but deadlifts are like, and sprints. So if you do, like, I don't run distance anymore. I used to be like a marathon runner. I don't do that anymore. So if you do sprints, so you do all these explosive energies or explosive exercises, it's going to create better twitch muscles. Okay. And what happened is because my lower body was so strong, when I came back from Battle of the Nations, I mean, I'm lighting people up. I mean, just crushing people to the point where I had to go to the most minimum sword that there is, that's shade for tan. And I break a sword. Like I broke 2 swords the last crown I fought. I'm like, just sheared them in half. Like somebody cut them with a saw.
Wow.
And you just have to accept it, and then like my buddy Uther taught me a trick. So now I make 5 swords before I go to every crown list, and I label them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I put tape and like the only thing I remember. And so you got to get that grip tape. You got to get that tennis tape on there. Okay. And then a weird thing that I use is I use this thing that I picked up in Battle of the Nations from dueling. So their single combat is called duels. And so that's it. So you see how I just slipped that in there? So the advantage of this to this. So how many times do you take, 2, 3, 4, 5 swords with basket on them? Well, I got 1, and it's the same every single time. So if I'm fighting a guy that likes to take a little bit heavier, I can switch this out and go to a little thicker sword. And I'm like, this guy likes to fight inside. I'm going to go to a 32-inch sword instead of a 36. It allows me a lot of versatility with minimal equipment. So all I have to do is just have my sticks in there, and I don't have to worry about anything. And it's been something that at first I didn't like, but there's just so many benefits to it. And I have one that looks like a gauntlet too. That one's pretty, but I like that one better. I mean, it's ugly, but we all have our favorite.
Yeah, it's better than a plastic basket hilt.
Yeah, those suck.
Yeah.
Sorry for everybody that likes the plastic basket hilts.
Well, I mean, they're practical. They just
they absolutely
pretty.
are. Especially, I'm smaller, so like if you have gigantic hands, or if that's what you can get your hands on, there's nothing wrong with those things. But I'm so picky about all my gear. I'm like, if I have a buckle that's not working right, I'll just tear it off and just like start over. And like, what are you doing? It's a buckle. Just like, nope, that hole's not right. So
I just have to say that I love how you described power generation, because after I had my baby and I came back, I rediscovered how to generate power, and it was all about bringing up energy through my feet and my core and having a loose hand and being relaxed.
Right. And so like I've had other things too. Like I had my shoulder completely rebuilt before I won this last crown. And so like for 5 years, I'm fighting on broken chicken wing. And so like I'm using these back muscles because you're trying to compensate, because the arm doesn't work anymore. I mean, it just doesn't work. And, I had a torn bicep, the rotator cuff was gone. I mean, there's all kinds of problems. And anyway, so if your doctor says you got a torn rotator cuff, just go have the surgery. I put mine off for 5 years, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel perfect now.
Take care of yourself. So. Cool. All right. So let's do a final 10. I've switched the questions up. So
I'll try to be brief.
Oh, I don't care if you're brief.
Okay.
What event that you have never gone to would you like to go to?
Sport of Kings. I swear to God, it used to be Western Crown List, but I did that 2 years ago.
Were you out there for Helga's knighting?
What's that?
Were you out there when Helga got knighted?
Yeah. So, so I did this great speech. Like I did this super boast before, very 14th century. And like, I put it out there. I'm like, I'm coming for all y'all. I'm going to kill every one of you. I'm going to make Madeleine to the queen. And because I told her, I was like, honey, I don't want to go if you're not going to let me win. I'm like, you going to let me win? And she's like, yeah. And I was like, Uther, because Uther, like he said, hey, Felix, come and fight. I'm like, oh, I don't want to come. And he's like, why not? I'm like, well, it's not cool if I win. He goes, no, totally try to win. I'm like, really? And he's like, yeah. I said, okay, now you said that. I'm going to come and win. And he's like, and I know that sounds arrogant, but I like I said, this is just how I think. Mindset. And I think there's nothing wrong with that. It's okay. And then when you lose, you be humble about it.
Right.
And then, cause I'm getting ready to tell a story about that crown list real quick. And so she's like, no, go get it, baby. And I was like, fine. And I came out and made this gigantic boast. And I was like, I'm going to slay all the men of the West, blah, 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 blah. And she did the classic Lord of the Rings. I'm not a man. And I was like, good on you. And she challenged me because, it's a challenge up thing. And I was like, you are such a knight. You were such, and I had given her a coin. I gave her a Battle of the Nations coin. There were only 29 of them. And I gave her that coin. And I told her, I was like, knights should give other knights gifts. And we should never ever have any possessions that we're not willing to, give away. And she was a duchess then. And she was like, okay, and she was really nice to me. And, we've kind of had a few interactions since then. And I really like her. Each time I talk to her, I'm really, really impressed with her. And she, outside of Alfar, she was my hardest fight. Yeah, I mean, I couldn't kill her. And I was like, holy crap. Like, cause like I don't lose a lot. I just don't. I mean, there are people that I lose to, but I just don't lose a lot. And I was like, all right, this is going to be a good warm-up fight. It'll be a good fight. I know she's skilled. I've heard good things, but I'm gonna put her in the dirt quick. I fought her hard, and I couldn't kill her.
I was like, there.
All my tricks, I couldn't kill her. And I'm like, and I was like making crap up. I'm like, couldn't kill her. And then once I got her on her knees, finally, I made her make a mistake, and then I was like, okay, I'm gonna win the fight. But I thought I was gonna lose. I mean, there was a point in the fight. I'm like, if I don't kill her soon, I'm gonna lose because she's figuring me out. And you know, like I lost to Christopher of York, but I had who won the day, but I had him beat. I fell. I was like, I'm killing you, Christopher, and I fell, but I had him beat. I had no answer for Duke Alfar. Alfar was just better than me that day. And it's funny, his brothers, that's the one I prepared for was Miles. And I fought Miles in warm up. I'm like, I'm going to be king today. I'm going to be prince today. I'm going to have to fight Miles, and I'm going to kill Miles. I've got him. I got him. I didn't even know anything about Alfar. It was like, and I knew about Christopher, and I knew how to beat him. And there were a couple of people on the way. They're like, you're not going to beat him. And I just went, bam, one shot him. They're like, holy crap. And, you know, the greatest thing of the day, you know, from an ego standpoint, they're like, you hear, you know, it was that Conan moment and the lamentations of the women. They're like, oh my God, he's going to be king. And I'm like, yeah. No, I wasn't. I lost. I lost like a dog.
You know, we all came down for that crown, and I remember your fight with Helga. I didn't know it was you, but that was such an intense fight, such a great first round.
Oh, she was so good.
So good.
She was so good.
Yeah, that was such a fun crown too. It was super fun.
Oh, that was a great day.
Yeah.
That was a good day.
Okay. If you could fight anyone in the world, who would it be?
Oh, there's so many people. There's so many people. You. I want to fight you. I haven't fought you. I mean, like, I love fighting all these people, okay? And, you know, it just, there's so many people I want to fight all the time. You know, I love fighting my buddy, Count Alaric. Like, I always love fighting him, but I fought him so many times. I just love fighting new people that I haven't fought yet. So I can't think of anybody new that I haven't fought. So I want to fight you.
Okay. Well, it's on.
All right.
When we can.
All right. Put some stick on me. Bruise me up.
What's your favorite Penzic story?
My favorite Penzic story. I'll tell a me story.
Okay.
Okay. It was my first reign. Okay. I'm going to tell a two-parter. So I'm going to, you know, okay. So I was this young squire. Okay. And Duke Ulrich, George Salterno, that you're getting ready to, he was like, he and I are good friends. We haven't seen each other for a long time, but we're still friends. And so Gunther dragged me down to Atlantia. Like, here's this young guy you need to fight. And so we're all puffing up. I'm like, you ain't that good, man. Because, you know, I'm beating a lot of people at this point, and so is he. And we're like, yeah, right. And so we kind of walk away from each other. But the part of this is King Cohen's there. And I'm like, oh, man, that's what a king is. He's in the Moose Lodge singing songs. He looks like he's right out of a chanson. And, you know, he just like looks the part. You're like, wow, man, I'll never be that good. So eventually, you know, fast forward, I'm knighted and I'm a king. Cohen's king. And I courted him hard. He told me no. You know, I was like, all right. And so we run at each other on the field. He tells the archers on his side, do not shoot that king. If you shoot them, I'm going to kill you for real. And I was like, all right, this guy gets it. This guy gets it. And so we come out there and we line up each other and we stab him. I mean, like, he hits me in the side of the head and I stab him in the face, and like double kill. It was up in the corner of the castle and we're both laughing, you know, but so that's a great Penzic story. But the best Penzic story is later on when we're inside the fort. House Darkmoon is around me. They're you know, a really good. They're a war-oriented household, and we're surrounded. I mean, we're surrounded, and it's a timed thing. So whoever can hold the castle the longest wins, and they're just coming for me. Everybody wants to kill me, and Darkmoon's around me. That's it. So like we've got like 25 people around us. And they're hewing them down. I mean, like Darkmoon's killing people. I mean, they're just killing people. They're outnumbered like 5-1. And they're just, because they can just keep coming. And they're just killing and killing and killing. and I don't know who it was. They called a hold, and they're like, "Your Majesty, you know, who stands around you?" We would stop and know the people around you. And I said, "This is House Darkmoon." And they're like, "I know who." And they're like, "We would have you know your heroes." And I said, "I know who my heroes are. Call Leon." And obviously it was blood in the water for these guys. I wasn't thinking about it at the time. And they just like fought to the end, and we got crushed. We got beat down, and we won the battle. We won the battle. We won the battle because of them. And they were trying to get me to yield, and I wouldn't yield. And they're like, "We're fighting till we're dead." And so those are some great stories. Nothing I did. I just stood there. I just stood there and held the banner. I didn't do anything. They did all the heroic stuff, you know. And then I gave them the whole household an augmentation of arms, and they're considered fringe here in the mid realm, but they're really great people. I love them. I love them. I'll always love them.
Cool.
That was like 17 years ago.
All right. Who are your favorite people to watch fight?
There's so many. Sasha St. Martin. He's just a knight, just recently knighted, but that guy is like Duke level fighter. He will chew up a lot of Dukes real fast.
Is he from the mid realm?
What's that?
Is he from the middle?
He's from the mid realm, you know. I love watching Hansa fight, and I like watching Duke Steven fight, you know. But you know, Hansa's from Steven. Yeah, I love watching Uther fight. I love watching Sean fight. I love watching Craven fight from Antheora, or Antheora. What's that?
Aidenville.
I said Antheora.
It's one of the A kingdoms. There's a lot.
I love watching Elon fight, because man, you know, a guy that tall should not be able to move like that. And you're just like, what in the hell? And the same thing about Uther. I'm like, okay, Elon's like a skinny version of you. And both you guys are just stupid. You know, but there's so many people, you know. I love watching Brian fight. I even like watching you know, I know you know, a lot of people don't like Michael, you know, Bedford, but if you really, you know, look at what he's doing, I mean, he does some cool stuff. You know, but there's so many people that I really love to watch fighting. I'm a student of the game, you know, like Sir Jocelyn, my former King's champion. I love her fighting. She just blew out her knee last year, and then COVID hit. But I love watching Jocelyn fight, you know, and you know, I always give Braun a shit. I'm like, you're fucking boring, you know, but I really do love watching him fight. I really do, because he's such a technician, you know. And once you talk to him and you understand what's going on in your brain, when you watch him fight, it's just like, oh my God, this guy is so goddamn good. And I'm gonna tell you right now, all you people that fight Braunus now, you don't know Braunus. If you fought Braunus 15 years ago, you wouldn't have a prayer. That guy is amazing. So, you know, he's had a lot of injuries and he had some surgeries, and you know, he wouldn't like me talking about him like this way, from the aspect of making excuses. You have no idea how good he is. You have no idea, and you're lucky to learn from him and to fight him. That's all I gotta say. So I'm sorry I was all over the map.
No, that's great.
My friend Count Alaric, I love fighting that guy. That guy just, he's cool too. So,
do you have a hero in the SCA, and if so, who is it?
Oh, I have tons of heroes for a variety of reasons, you know. And this kind of sounds corny and whatnot, but you know, my wife is a hero of mine, because she makes me a better human being. But I have, you know, like we just made Dame Honor. Facebook has wrecked me, you know, with everybody's name. I kept wanting to call her Becca, you know. She's a hero of mine, you know. I just have so many, and I think that's what's so, you know, and I know that's not what the people want. You know, that's not the answer that I want, but I don't care. I'm just going to give you an honest one. That's what's so incredible about the SCA is everybody has an opportunity to inspire everyone else. Not everyone will, but everyone has the opportunity. It just depends on what you decide to do with that opportunity. And you never know who you will inspire and whose day you'll wreck. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. It kind of goes back to the whole thing that we started with.
Yep. Cool. Let's see. If you had to recommend one event in your kingdom from someone out of kingdom to go to, what would it be?
War or like a tournament, because like we're very different. We have very two different cycles, like, you know, because like Penzic's a big deal for us, but we also have like tourney season. So if you were gonna like do a war thing, come to Penzic. Come to Penzic. There's nothing like Penzic. It's a shit show, and it's also amazing all in one. To do a tournament, you know, I would say like if you were looking for the best fighting, probably Candlemass. Probably Candlemass. Because people go there to find out where they're at. I mean, in our kingdom, you know, like and we've had multiple out of kingdom winners. I mean, it's, you know, we don't care who wins. We just don't want you to be a dick when you show up. That you know, because we've had a few of those.
That one sounds a lot like we have an event right before that called Ursamus, which is a big pool tournament like that, and we've had out of kingdom winners too. It's just
Valday's pretty amazing. That's usually at the very end of, you know, or like right around the middle of February, Valentine's Day. But that tends to be turned into a tournament of chivalry. You couldn't go wrong showing up at a tournament of chivalry. I don't care if you were a member of the Shiv or if you were an unbelt, you would have a good day. You would have a good day. All the fighting you would want. You would lay down tired at the end.
excellent. What book do you think everyone on the path to knighthood should read?
Okay, so there's not one. There's multiple ones, but I'll give you three. I'll give you one from the classics. It was written by Romanus, called Stratagems. Okay, and it talks about very specific or different types of strategies that you would use, because as a knight, you should also be, it's my view that you should be able to counsel in war. So I'm going to also give you, well, actually I'm going to give you four. So a historical one, you should read The Flower of Chivalry for William the Marshal. A classic fiction would be Sir Nigel. It's actually two parts, Sir Nigel and the White Company. And then many people know about this. I've been like ramming it down people's throat for the last year and a half. Is by Christian Cameron, the Chivalry series, and the first book is An Ill-Made Knight, which you should read the whole series. And that first one, if you're on the path, it talks about it. I mean, and he starts as, you know, I think like a 12-year-old boy, and they go through it, and there's struggles, and there's so many points that he's not going to make it. He's just not going to make it, you know, and he's in war, and he's a killer. He's a killer, and he understands the concepts of chivalry, and he's doing bad things. He's also doing good things. And people need to understand that, you know, knights are complex because they're human. Humans are complex. There's the person that you think is like the pinnacle, they're not. There's bad in that person, okay? And what makes them knightly is they overcome that, okay? We have false knights. We have people that never overcome that, because we have garbage individuals that wear the title of knight. They're not knights. They're false knights. And I will be the first to own that and admit that. And so when people say, well, all knights are bad, no, all knights are not bad. But I'm not going to close ranks and tell you that all knights are good, because they're not. There are some very bad people that wear the title knight. And all I can do is try to hold high those that are good, and that I can work to try to be worthy of the title knight and try to be a good person. And I fail sometimes, but I try very hard.
Love that. If you could change one thing about the SCA, what would it be?
We talked about this already. Don't celebrate the winner. That's okay. Let's hold the other person up. And I think we could do a better job of that.
Excellent. What is your favorite in-kingdom tradition?
Favorite in-kingdom tradition? Then the knights have started it, but the other orders have risen to the occasion. But I'm going to speak proudly as a knight because we've been doing this for decades. Every coronation, we come forth and we swear the same oath. We have the same oath and we swear it, and we serve the crown. That doesn't mean that we're yes women and men. It means that we counsel the crown, we hold the crown accountable, but we don't work against the crown. We serve the crown, and the royal peers do as well. There's no War of the Roses stuff going on. We want our crowns to be successful. The mid-realm culture is very strong in supporting the crown, and I'm very very grateful and proud of that tradition.
Cool. All right. And then the last one, what do you think is the most important trait to become a successful fighter?
Perseverance. And it's not just one. So discipline goes with perseverance. You have to have the discipline to do the work, okay? But you also have to go through the fire, as they say. If you don't have those things, you won't make it. If you give up, you're done. You're done. I mean, that's it. But you also have to have the discipline to go to practice each week, listen to the lessons that are being taught, go home, process that information, figure out how to apply it. Okay. And then you have to have the perseverances if you can't figure that information out to go back and ask. And part of that's humility. So, I mean, it's the old, well, what's the one true virtue? There's not. There's not. And so it's complex. Fighting is very simple, but the practical application of it is very complex. And so you just have to commit to this thing. And we talked about that earlier. And it doesn't matter. If you want a master's degree and you can't do math, well, it's going to be really hard. It's going to be really, really hard to get there. But if you get a tutor, you put in the extra work, it will happen for you. And that's just life. And fighting is a reflection of that. And that's probably why you see so many people from so many different backgrounds have such, it's not even an affection, it's genuine love. It's it's unrequited even. I mean, they don't expect a return on it. They're just investing in it without expecting anything back. I mean, a lot of that is just such a commitment that, I get upset with people when they go, well, you were naturally talented, or, it just came easy for me. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, because I fought 4 days a week at practice and a fifth day. And then, I have had like 1, 2, 3, 4 surgeries that are fighting related. I've got like 20 scars on my body from various things, compound fractures and whatnot. It would have been easy to say, hey, I'm done. I'm 53. Okay. I'm 53. I had reconstruction surgery when I was either 51 or 52. Okay. I've done enough. Okay. People kind of know who I am in my kingdom. I don't have to do anything else, but I'm like, hey, doc, can you put some tread back on the tire? Like, give me 5 more years. And like, I've had both ankles reconstructed. I've had my left knee reconstructed. I've had ungodly amount of broken bones. All right. I've, my wife doesn't like it when I tell the falling out of a helicopter story, but I've had I've been driven over by a van twice. Okay. I didn't have to go get my shoulder repaired. And that was the worst freaking surgery that I ever had. And she's like, she calls Bronis. She goes, because Bronis had the surgery before I did, like 3 or 5 years. She goes, I'm either going to kill him or he's just not going to make it through this, just because I've never seen him like this. It was the worst surgery I've ever had. It was so hard to go through. And what I'm getting at is, you gotta really love what you're doing to put yourself through that much. I probably need elbow surgery, but I won't get it. I'm just being like, I don't even care. I can't even feel my elbow anymore compared to the rest of my body, the way that it feels. So you gotta love it. Is what I'm getting at. You gotta love it, and you gotta want to have a lot of tears along the way. But that's my path. Some people it's very easy. It's 3 years and they're done. And oh my God, Sir Silverthorne. I mean, I think it took him 25 years to get knighted. I mean, there's no way. There's no way. I talk about discipline and perseverance. I don't think I got that much perseverance. I don't think so. I just don't. And so again, that comes back to being inspired again by other people. I look at that person and I'm like, my path was so easy compared to his,
Well, it wasn't. It wasn't though, because you fought 5 times a week.
No, it was hard. Like I fought like thousands and thousands and thousands of hours. And in our practice, you weren't allowed to talk. You fought. That was it. You were fighting or you were drinking water. That was it. And you didn't get to go like, oh, well, blah, 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 blah. No, there was none of that. It was like, you're eating rattan or you're getting the other person to eat rattan. And that's not a good practice. But we learned, we learned.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you so much for joining me. I've really enjoyed talking to you. I loved our tangential philosophical conversations. They were very interesting and stimulating.
Hopefully they were good. Hopefully
I think
that
they
people
were.
learned something. That's the biggest thing is it's like, and that guy talked a lot and I didn't learn shit. That's a failure. That's a failure right there.
Well, I think if somebody didn't learn something watching this, that they weren't listening.
So one final, can I say one final thing? Okay. Here's, I just want to kind of like talk about something real quick. Okay.
Sure.
So people mostly suck. Okay. From when it comes to fighting. All right. And so let me please like slow that down for a second and listen to what I have to say. So most people think that they're much better than they are, and they mostly suck. Okay. Most people think that they're worse than they actually are, and they think they suck. Okay. They don't. I'm both of those things. Okay. You need to be honest with yourself. You need to be able to really process what's in front of you. So don't get in your own head. Don't let people fill your head up with bullshit on both sides of that. Okay. Don't let people tell you you're awesome when you're not. And don't let people tell you you suck when you don't. Okay. All right. So go to practice, listen, learn, take what you've learned, go back, practice that on your own, figure out how to execute what you've learned. And that's a process. It's not going to come instantaneously. Be patient with yourself. You can hold yourself accountable, but you can also be kind to yourself. You don't have to tell yourself you're awful. You don't have to tell yourself you'll never get knighted. You don't have to tell yourself you'll never win crown list. Okay? Do the work. Don't worry about the perceived accolades, okay? Because I'm going to tell you the truth here. Not all dukes are created equal, okay? We've got some fluky dukes out there. They're not very good. They think they're good and they're not. And we have some extremely humble dukes that don't think that they're very good. And they're extremely good. Okay. And I just want to kind of, to tell you, just because somebody's won a couple tournaments doesn't make them an expert. All right. So don't be so hard on yourself. If those individuals are not continuing to try to learn, well, they're kind of a wasted space here. Okay. Because they're not really contributing anything back. They're not trying to get better. They're not trying to help people on the path. So be kind to yourself and be kind to people around you. We all love fighting. So let's just kind of show up and learn from each other.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I've really enjoyed this. And thank you everybody else for joining us, and I'll see you next time. Thanks again, Your Majesty.
Thank you.